The lecture on respiration in plants or cellular respiration is divided in 7 parts. This first part deals with some general facts about cellular respiration. The other parts are glycolysis, aerobic respiration or Kreb cycle. Fourth is electron transport chain. Fifth part deals with the calculation of number of ATPs produced during cellular respiration. Sixth part deals with why respiration pathway is amphibolic pathway and not catabolic, and the seventh part deals with respiratory quotient of various substrates. In respiration, there is cleavage of carbon-carbon bonds of various complex organic compounds. This is called as oxidation of the carbon-carbon bonds. This occurs within the cells, and breakdown of each carbon-carbon bond releases some amount of energy, and this process is called respiration. The compounds which contain energy-rich carbon-carbon bonds are mainly carbohydrates, especially glucose, fats, proteins, and some organic acids. These energy-rich compounds, they are taken to each and every cell of the body for respiration. These are transported by various mechanisms. For example, there is local photosynthesis of glucose in cyanobacteria and green parts of the plant if they are exposed to sunlight and air. The other parts of the plant where photosynthesis is not occurring due to any reason, these are to be translocated. There are various transport mechanisms in plants which are discussed in another chapter. In case of parasitic organisms, they directly absorb from the host. In higher organisms, these energy-rich compounds are transported to each and every cell via the circulatory system. So these are first absorbed from the gut, stored in the storage sites, various storage sites in the body, and from there they are transported to each and every cell via the circulatory system in animals. Usually, preferably, it is carbohydrates which are utilized for release of energy. But under certain conditions, other molecules can also be oxidized to release this energy, like proteins, fats, and organic acids. In fact, in some organisms, these are routinely utilized for energy release in preference to carbohydrates. The substance which is used for releasing energy via oxidation of carbon-carbon compounds is called as the substrate. Energy obtained from the oxidation of these substrates is utilized by the cells for performing basic life functions like digestion, breathing, reproduction, rather you can say for living, and also for synthesizing other organic molecules which are required by the organism. Substrate oxidation can be compared to combustion or burning the substrate. When a substrate is burnt using oxygen, large amount of heat is released. In burning, this heat is released in one go. Imagine a flash, fire and heat which is lost to the environment and is wasted. On the other hand, the cell needs to store this energy for future use. It may not be used immediately. Hence, the substrate which is oxidized in cells is oxidized in a stepwise manner, wherein small amounts of energy is released at each steps. And this stepwise burning or oxidation of the substrate can be achieved only with help of enzymes. The concept of ATP. ATP is the energy currency of living cells. As discussed previously, the small amounts of energy which is released at each step of oxidation of the substrate is used to add a molecule of inorganic phosphate to ADP, adenosine diphosphate. And adenodiphosphate converts to adenosine triphosphate. In other words, energy released at each step is coupled to ATP synthesis. The energy is released, ATP is synthesized. The bond between the second and third phosphate in ATP is actually the energy-rich bond, which stores one fixed unit of energy. This bond is broken as and when required, as and when energy is needed. And when it is broken, ATP gets converted to ADP and inorganic phosphate. As many ATPs are broken as are required for the particular task by the cell. Hence we can say that ATP is the energy currency of living cell. The respiration, that is oxidation of substrate, not only provides energy, it also provides precursors for biosynthesis of other molecules. Complete oxidation of glucose yields mostly heat energy as per this equation. This heat energy cannot be directly utilized as discussed previously, and hence it is used to synthesize ATPs, which can then be broken down as and when required. However, the entire carbon-carbon skeleton may not always be oxidized, may not always be completely broken down. As the carbon skeleton is being broken down, one carbon by one, energy is released which is stored as ATP, but the residual carbon-carbon skeleton may sometimes be picked up before it is completely oxidized for synthesizing some other organic molecule which is required by the cell. So, oxidation of organic compound, especially carbohydrate, it provides energy and precursors for biosynthesis of other organic molecules. Can respiration occur even in absence of oxygen? In absence of oxygen, it is possible to respire, but glucose can also only be partially oxidized and very small amount of energy will be released. The glucose is broken down only till the level of pyruvic acid and not further to carbon dioxide and H2O and water, wherein the most of the energy is released at later steps. So very tiny amount of energy from the substrate can be released, and this breakdown of glucose to pyruvic acid level is called as glycolysis. It is dealt with the next part, in the next part of the lecture, part 2. On the other hand, some cells may actually be living where oxygen is not available. These cells are sometimes adapted to anaerobic conditions. In fact, the first cells to form on this earth may actually have been living under anaerobic conditions, thereby partially oxidizing glucose and utilizing the energy which was sufficient for their needs. Some of these organisms present today may be facultative anaerobes, that is, they can survive in absence of oxygen by using the small energy from partial glycolysis, from partial oxidation, that is glycolysis. Other cells may be obligate anaerobes, that is, they need only anaerobic condition. If oxygen is present, then they will not thrive only. So facultative anaerobes, they can survive without oxygen. Obligate anaerobes can survive only without oxygen. In fact, all the living organisms have the enzymatic system required for glycolysis. So this part of the lecture has dealt with some general facts about respiration. The remaining 6 parts will deal with the following topics.